the DTs. Oh, wait, no, DTDs. Sorry, I'm seeing stuff there. Okay, document type definitions. So we said XML is like HTML, but you get to make up your own tags. Great. I look at this tag for this collection of children, or for the Ancient Wonders, or iTunes collection, or whatever. And as I'm reading, it occurs to me like, hey, I want to make my own file in this format. What tags am I allowed to have? I see some tags here and some tags there. Are there other tags that just don't happen to be mentioned in this one example that I'm looking at? Of the tags that are mentioned, do they have to be in a certain order? Can I have multiple of some tags or not? Can I have multiple names? Can I have multiple years destroyed? Yeah, so somewhere we should really nail all that down and make that formal. If I'm making a XML language that I want other people to be able to add on to. So, and even just for myself, okay? So we'll give our own grammar for our XML tags, okay? And I'll mention there's two rough technologies for doing this that are out there that are pretty common. DTDs are one, and XML schemas are another. XML schemas are probably better. They're more heavyweight. They're a little bit harder to get into and harder to learn. Since we're not going to go really in depth, we'll use DTDs. They're kind of lightweight, easy just to add in. You throw some stuff in. They can't always do everything you want to do, though, if you are really making a complicated definition, or even not that complicated. There's just certain things they have limitations on. Okay, so we'll just look at writing some DTDs. The purpose of doing this is partly to learn DTDs, partly just to, again, think about, gosh, what are my specs? When I come up with these tags, what requirements am I really wanting other people to follow that I have never written down and should be specifying? Okay, so we'll go ahead and talk about DTDs, how to define elements, what tags we can have, what attributes an element can have, and what entities we can have. Okay, and first of all, I'm going to go ahead and we'll show an example in a second. Well, let's just jump to it right now. Go to chapter 6, this thing here, this wonders.xml. I'm going to look at that. I'm going to look at that file. It took off since it's an XML file and the browser is rendering it in its own way, it took off the first very couple lines that said it was an XML file. I'm going to do a show source on this file. Not that you need to know or remember that. Here is the actual file, XML version 1, a little comment node here. Here we are, doc type. The doc type is defined as not as HTML, and not just any XML, it's an Ancient Wonders doc type. Gosh, what is an Ancient Wonders doc type? This here means, hey, look at the file on the same system that we're on now. Look at the file chapter 6 wonders.dtd. So don't go off and look somewhere on the interwebs for the big specification. It's right here on, really this is like a local URL. Okay, so let's go look at this chapter 6 wonders.dtd that was used to define all the tags and what's allowed and what isn't allowed in here. So, and this will just give us a spirit of the thing, and then I'll come back and write some examples. Okay, here's the DTD. There you are allowed to have an element named Ancient Wonders, and I'll talk more about this. You can have one or more wonders in there. You can have an element wonder. That's another element you can have, another node you can have. It has, in order, one or more names, followed by a location, followed by a height being optional, followed by history, a main image, and then 0 or more sources. Close that paren. So a wonder has to have at least one name, one location, height can be omitted, history, main image. So there's at least 4 tags in there. You can have more sources and more names and a height if you want. Okay. Okay, so we'll come and talk more about these other different things here, specifying, but basically this file is saying, hey, what are the elements, what are the tags that I'm allowed to have? And then we'll talk about the attribute list. Hey, the name tag can have the following attributes: a language, in fact it's required, etc. Okay, so that's the gist of what we're going to be talking about. You can either have your DTD be an external file, it's like CSS. You can have an external file, or you can stick it right in the file up at near the top. I would recommend for this class, I think it's just a little bit easier to keep it in the same file. That's not the general purpose solution. As soon as you have more than one file that follows this, more than one database following this DTD, you'd want it in a separate file. But it's a little bit easier for turning files in and getting them to work and viewing them in your browser and so on. For this homework, it's going to be small enough. Let's just put it inside the same file. Shh, don't tell anybody I'm allowing this. Okay, so what can you do? You can have a doc type, and the name of your document type is, again, it's not HTML5, it's not, or sorry, not HTML, it's not just generic XML. We're going to say doc type ancient wonders, and then we'll actually have a square bracket, all these different things we're about to talk about, the element and the attributes and so on, and entities, and then a close bracket, and then we're going to close off our doc type. Okay, so it's sort of like putting it up, it's like putting CSS up in the head of a HTML file. That's how I think of it. Okay, cool. We now have a doc type defined, and then we can go ahead and start putting in all the tags. And I could take an external tool, by the way, and validate my document. Hey, does this, all the tags that I have down here, do they really match all the constraints up in the specs here? Just like validating your HTML to make sure it's proper HTML, same thing. Okay. Well, clearly the doc type for HTML is a much longer file. Yeah, but anyway. So you can go ahead and do that, or you can go ahead and put it in a separate file, which, like what we just saw. And the easiest way to do that is a system. If it's on the same system as the file that you're currently accessing. Again, that's what I can do. What gets a little bit more annoying is saying, hey, here's a general URL for this document. And you can do that. I'm not going to talk about it here. Some sort of public doc type ancient wonders public, and then a string that's in a very specific format here. And there's a, you give the URL, but you also have to give it some other stuff, a name for it and namespace and stuff like that. So, okay, so I'm going to ask you actually not to do this on your homework. Just use the system. If you're going to have it in an external file, use the system declaration. And if you want to have it in the same file for this class, for the one homework we're going to do, that's going to be okay. At the end of the day, I'm less concerned about teaching you the specific tool DTDs. Education is not about learning the specific tools that might be out of date. But it's more about, hey, the skills to think about these things, and in particular the skill that we're getting here is just, first of all, the idea of formalizing our grammar, our XML language, and reinforcing the skill of writing specs, which is sort of like writing an interface, and what should this function do, what should this set of tags do, what does it really need to have, what can it have. Okay, so now let's go and talk about XML elements, that is nodes of the tree. Okay, so tags. Okay, so we already saw, you can say angle bracket question mark element, then the name of the tag, and then you can have different things here. So if you only want text, you can have either PC data or C data. Where do I mention C data? PC data means that this is parsed character data. Parsed character data means it can contain entities. We're going to take this character data and we're going to parse it. That is, we're going to see any ampersand, LT, semicolon, and turn those into less thans. That's basically what it means. So if it's text that can contain entities, go ahead and call it PC data. If it is just text that's just going to contain raw text, and if you say ampersand LT in there, you mean an ampersand character and an L character and a T character, and you don't mean a little angle bracket at all, then you do C data. C data is just character data that is not parsed. So PC data is probably what we want to use most of the time. Okay. So yeah, if you have an element that just contains text, just say, hey, it contains PC data. That's what's inside of it. Okay. So here are some examples from that file. Name and history were both PC data. Occasionally we have tags that are entirely empty. There's nothing inside the body of the tag. What's an example of this in HTML? A tag that doesn't have anything at all inside of it? And pause and think for a moment. Yeah, so one thing that comes up, image tag. An image tag, you have an image and you have a source attribute, but you don't have anything inside the image, angle bracket image, and then close angle bracket image, just nothing inside there. BR tags, break tags, HR tags, horizontal rules, nothing allowed inside of them. Paragraph could be empty, but it could have stuff inside of it. So paragraph we wouldn't define to be a necessarily empty tag. Here we're going to use things if things must be empty. So, okay, fair enough. I think in the DTD that we saw, they do have a tag they call para, which, again, this is sort of poor design, but they use para as a separator between paragraphs. And so a little para tag, they use a node to represent a separation between paragraphs, and that's not the right way to represent that hierarchical structure there, but oh well. Sometimes our books teach us through bad examples, and I'm letting you know that. Okay, okay, tags that require other tags inside of them. That's kind of what we're all about here. So angle bracket element tag, and then we can go ahead and have child. I tend to throw in parentheses even if there's just one. Okay, so if you have two child names in a row, it means that both those things must occur, and they must occur one after the other. So think of an HTML tag must contain a head tag and a body tag and nothing else. So this is the DTD form of the HTML tag for HTML. Okay, and then like we already saw, you can have star meaning 0 or more of a tag, an element, plus meaning 1 or more, and question mark meaning 0 or 1. Same notation is used often in regular expressions, so that makes a lot of sense. Okay, yeah, so element of pet, name plus nickname star vet. Go ahead and just for fun, pause the video, give me 3 different pet tags that meet this specification. I'm not going to worry about what goes inside a name tag or inside a nickname tag or inside a vet tag, so just ignore that. But imagine I'm going to make a pet node, a pet element. How can I arrange the tags inside of it? Give me 3 different ones. They're all different in different ways. Okay, so good. While doing that, let's go ahead and I'll pull up an editor here that will go ahead and close things, close my tags for me, rearrange windows. Oop, don't rearrange them that much. Okay, so what can I do? I can have a, let me go ahead and do, I can have a pet tag and close pet. Inside a pet, I can have a name, Bartok. I can have several names, nicknames, kitty. Let's make this window wider. Taco. What else can I have inside my pet tag? I'm going to have a vet tag. So vet. And gosh, what is the name of our vet? It's always a name that I have a hard time remembering. You know, South Main Street Vet or something like that. Sure. South Main Street Vet Incorporated. Okay, so it'd be one example that meets this definition. I have one name, I have 2 nicknames, and a vet. What are some other things that can still meet this? I'm going to copy and paste. So in particular, by the way, it's why is this being shown as an error in my editor? Because remember, an XML file should only have one tag at the root. Everything inside the file should be inside. So I didn't do this here to satisfy the general XML spec, I'll go ahead and throw it all inside another tag. Yeah, how about, can I leave off all the, I'm going to make the shortest one I can. So name, do I need a name? Yeah, gotta have at least one. Do I need to have any nicknames? Nope, I can have 0 of them. Do I need to have a vet? No, that was optional. So that's a good one as well. So that's, I probably should have done this one first, right? Why do more work at the beginning than I have to? And let's go and make one more example, 3 different examples. Name, can I have more than one name? Yeah. Name, if you look on my birth certificate, Magnificat. Okay. Sure, maybe one person names something and then you adopt them and they have their old name, but you start calling them a new one. Eventually that becomes the name, but yeah, whatever. Okay. I'm not worried about the semantics of this so much, but yeah, so I can have multiple names. Could I still have 0 nicknames with that? And then maybe 1 vet. Can I have 2 vets here? No, definitely can't have 2 vets. So, okay, so these are some examples of the data following this little spec. Can I swap the order of these things? Can I put a vet, have a name, then a vet, then a name? No, because inside the parentheses, I must have these all in the same order. Okay. Here's something interesting. I can actually use parentheses and nest them. Okay, so what if the spec had been something like this? What could I have? I'm sorry, I'm going to change it. I'm going to put a star on the outside. And I'm going to, so 0 or more of these parentheses things. What does that mean I can have? So I have a pet. That means I could go ahead and have a name and I'll leave off the nicknames. I'll leave off, well, no, let me just go ahead and put in a vet. Copy paste from the line above here. I could have a name, I could have the vet, and then I could go ahead and have a name again. Why would that? Why does that meet this spec, the one that has a star on the end? It says, okay, I'm going to go 0 more of these things. I'm going to have 2 of them. My first one is going to be a name and a vet, okay? And then I'm going to follow that with another one of these things that just has a name, okay? So if I wanted to allow both, names and vets in either order, I could go ahead and do that. Unfortunately, I mean, this is one way I might have changed things to allow that. Unfortunately, this allows more than I want, though. Go ahead and pause. Think about something that's probably, I just wanted to say, hey, you can have these in any order. Can we go ahead and think of a way that I'm allowing this definition would allow something I don't want to do? I wanted to say a vet was optional, either 0 or 1, okay? This would let me go ahead and have 5 vets. Why? I'll use the 5 vets if I had at least 5 names going with it, I guess. Because every time I repeat this whole parenthesized part, I could include another vet, but I'd have to include at least 1 name as well. So, yeah, I did want to keep vet to either 0 or 1, so putting the star at the end is probably not always the end-all be-all of what you want. So just be aware. Okay, there's something else I thought of in the middle of saying all that. Name, vet, name. By the way, what else would this thing? Is there something else that this, if I throw a star at the end of it, that I'd suddenly allow? Yeah, this would suddenly be valid, an entirely empty pet. Why would that be empty? Oh, I'm going to take this parenthesized thing and I'm going to have 0 of them. Okay, yeah. So, okay. So just thinking about how we can put these things together and how they work. So let's see, anything else to talk about? There isn't really a way to say I want exactly 3 of something. I guess I can go ahead and spell it out by doing something here. Remember that I said DTDs weren't as flexible as, say, XML schemas, and you can't always do everything you want to do. These are some examples we're running into. The last thing I want to mention is OR. Okay, OR, again, like regular expressions, does just what you think. You can have one of these, or one of these, or one of those. Okay. By the way, this here says, one of these three, not two of them. You can't have, two of these things. You can't have 0 of them. It's like choose exactly one of these three. If, and I'll mention this just as a design pattern here maybe, doing an OR with a star. Okay, what can go inside a p tag in HTML? This is not how they actually define it, but yeah, you might say, oh, a p tag can contain an EM or a strong or a UL or an OL or all the other block level tag, or BR or PC data can contain any one of those, and we can repeat that as many times as we'd like, including having 0 of them. We can have an empty paragraph in HTML. So this would not be an entirely unreasonable thing to write. Just let me put any of those tags in any order. So, but you couldn't throw in other tags. You couldn't put in a tag that wasn't listed here. So you couldn't put in a Barlin to school tag. So it's one of the drawbacks of paragraphs in HTML, if you ask me. You can make a tag that can contain anything. That's not very useful. That's sort of going against the whole idea of providing a grammar here. So, okay. So those are the ways we can define elements. Again, we'll look at this file here, and you can read through that and sort of get a feel for how they're doing things. Let's come back in another video and talk about putting in attributes.